Hi everyone, welcome back to Grant Me. Today's video, I'm gonna go through and talk about common mistakes that I usually see as an editor. So as an editor, I've edited probably hundreds of university and college essays, and so I can say with a bit of confidence that I know the common mistakes that I usually see in applications. And in this video, I'm gonna go through some of them, help you guys out, weed out some of those common mistakes that are holding your application back from being the best that it can be. So the first and most common mistake that I usually see is when students tell instead of show. Now, showing instead of telling is integral to your application because it shows how you did something rather than just describing what the event was. And it also helps you go deeper into what your role meant and how it impacted your community and yourself as well. So for example, a telling statement would be, as president of student council, I organized events and led my team. So in that sentence, you're actually just describing what you did. You're describing that you led your team and you organized events, but there are lots of details that are missing from that statement. For example, how did you organize events and lead your team? Did you use any persuasion skills to recruit teachers to be sponsors? How many team members did you lead? What means of communication did you have with them? How did you communicate between the team to the student body? Did you resolve any conflicts? How did you delegate tasks? To convert this into a showing sentence, we're going to etch out more of the skills and the tasks and what you did. So for example, in order to organize our annual winter formal, I delegated tasks by identifying each of my fellow council members' strong suits and periodically checked in with them so that they would feel comfortable with their role. I communicated with my team by holding meetings every week. I would incentivize their participation by ordering snacks and creating a positive and fulfilling environment. So even though you and I are not admissions officers, we can still tell between those two sentences which one tells more of your story, your skills, and the impact that you had on your team. So the second most common mistake that I see is when students use weak hooks. So the hook, I know, is probably the hardest thing that you're gonna write while writing your essay. It's the shortest, but it's also the hardest because it's the first thing that anyone will read when they read your essay. So here's what not to do. Don't use cliche quotes. No one wants to read, live every day like it's your last. So instead of using cliche quotes like live every day like it's your last, replace that with an anecdote. The best way to use an anecdote as your hook is when you start in the middle of the story. This concept is actually called in media res, and it's used for a lot of stories. And it's because it puts the reader right in the middle of your story and makes them want to keep on reading. So if you want the same feeling of live every day like it's your last, put the reader in the middle of the story of when you realized that you wanted to live every day like it's your last. Whether that was in a near-death experience, whether that was when you were hanging out with your friends, whether that was a conversation with your grandma. Make sure you use descriptive language, make sure you're vulnerable. All of these things will add up and you'll have a stellar essay. Along the same lines of live every day like it's your last, here's another example you can use. It was in the second month of the pandemic when my soccer season had cut short, my classes online, and my need for social interaction at an all-time high when I realized that I had to start living every day like it was my last. So that kind of intrigues the reader, kind of gets them into your head of why you're feeling that way and how you got to that conclusion. So of course, content of your essays matter, your experiences matter, and your stories matter. However, of course, grammar also matters. So this last tip is kind of a two-in-one. So the first one is to avoid contractions. This is a common rule in academic or formal writing. So what do contractions mean? Contractions are isn't, can't, don't, shouldn't. So make sure you convert those into non-contractions, which is should not, cannot, is not, do not. That alone will elevate your writing a lot more and you'll just sound a whole lot smarter. Lastly, this is my favorite one because as soon as I erase this from someone's essay, it just sounds 110% better. And that is to avoid adverbs like it's the plague. So adverbs do the opposite of what you want with your writing. They make them more wordy and they make them less effective. So for example, take the sentence, I had a really great experience. Instead of using the two words really great, really being the adverb, instead use an adjective that will replace both of those words and be more effective in what you're trying to say. Say you volunteered at a medical camp in another country. The words really great probably don't encompass everything that you learned there. So instead, use something like eye-opening. The experience was eye-opening. The word eye-opening has a lot tied to it. It means that you learned something, it means that you tried something new, and it just gives a nice wrap up to the experience that you just described. I have a lot more where that came from, so I will be doing more essay tip videos in the future. But for now, make sure you're subscribed to Grab Me, and I'll see you all next time.